Hey guys, welcome to the third installment of the E31 S85 suspension rebuild. None the least of which is going to be rebuilding the suspension and reinstalling everything into the rear of the car. We're going to be doing a lot more rust proofing and seam sealing underneath the chassis. We're going to be doing a diff rebuild, not a rebuild, but reassembly and swapping covers and things like that, and painting and blasting. And we're going to be working on CV joints, amongst other things. It's going to be a whole plethora of stuff you guys are going to really hopefully enjoy. I'll break up the video so you can click on the things that you're interested in. But for now, I'm just going to start chipping away at that CV joint. So guys, stay tuned. This is a good one. You don't want to miss it. So this here is the CV joint for the rear axle, one of the rear half shafts. This is the other one right here. This one is perfectly functional, no issues there. The reason that this one became is undone is because it fell apart when I was trying to remove the axle from the diff on the car. So that thing's kind of fell out, but it's perfectly functional. I just need to rebuild it, and I got new grease. I got everything. I just got to put it together. And then just make sure that everything still plays, and I'll show you how I do that in a quick time lapse. And then we just got to clean it up, and then we got to paint it, just make it look nice so that it matches the niceness of the rear subframe and the whole rear suspension itself. So let's do that right now. Balls in one at a time. You gotta be very careful how you put them in, and you want to make sure that the CV is always turned like that. Good. I got 1, 2, 3. I have another one in there somewhere. I thought I had a. Come on, man. I mean, the grease is sticky, so that's always a good sign. There we go. 4. Oh, there it is. Got one more ball. One more. Let's make sure I get it in this way. So close. All right, I figured it out. There's 2 different ways that you can actually install these things, and you can get all 6 balls in both orientations. Now, when you talk about the cage here, this is the cage, this guy right in here, this ring. The cage really doesn't matter what orientation it's in, it's just got 6 holes. The outer edge and the inner edge are the 2 things that matter most. Now, the outer edge they both actually have alternating large spaces and small spaces. And on this side, you see, there's a small space here and a large space here. Here, there's a small space and then a large space, like these are actually indentations. The idea is to match the opposite. Large space on the outside goes with small space on the inside. And then as you rotate the CV assembly around, you get access to each one of those balls individually. So I actually figured it out. I got it. And oh my gosh, is this hard with one hand? There we go. Okay, that was close. You can see it rotates in all directions with very little binding. It just needs to work. The grease just kind of needs to work in. I did repack it with new grease. Then I put the rear boot on and zip tie it all together and then clean up everything. So let's do that. But yeah, I'm glad I got it back together. I didn't really know much about CV joints until now, but I'm happy that I now understand how they work. So that's pretty cool. So if anything does ever happen to these things, I know that I can fix it myself with a simple boot change and then clean it all up and replace the actual grease. So pretty cool.
So I cleaned up one of the axles, and the other one on the right is not cleaned. Pretty big difference actually just by cleaning it alone. Cleaning up the boot, cleaning up the reluctor ring and the bands there, and certainly cleaning up the splines, because I want to make sure that the engagement into the hub is as easy as possible. I'm not going to show you how to do the other one. I'm just going to do it. But yeah, pretty big difference just by cleaning it alone. Now just remember, these are used axles, so it's not like I'm looking for perfection here. Just something that looks better than it did before. And I think that I've achieved that objective here by just giving it a quick clean. I got a lot to clean on this car, so I don't want to spend too much time on one particular item. All right, all axles are done. All of them. Both axles are done. We're going to be putting those the nuts in the blaster to clean them up too. But overall, everything looks really good. I'm very happy with the way it looks. Cleaned up, functional, and ready to go.
So as I had alluded to earlier, I wanted to upgrade the upper thrust arm bushings. All right, now the bushings that were on the car before, that even the brand new ones that I bought, are just crap. And they're known to fail, and they're known to provide a like a steering or suspension clunk whenever you're going over a curb or a bump. No good. I did not want to deal with that. So what I did was I bought Moosehead Engineering. This is provided and built by Paul Muskof. You guys probably know him. If you don't know him, then you're definitely got to brush up on your enthusiast information. This guy does some really good quality work. I ended up ordering these through AngryAssSolutions. Okay, great price, very competitive with Turner Motorsport and ECS tunings, monoball spherical bushings. These are really good quality stuff. I mean, just like running your finger over this. I mean, this is machined accurate part. I mean, I'm very impressed with the tolerances that this was built to. So congrats, Paul. Good job. You get my business anytime. So thank you so much for providing these, and AngryAssSolutions for distributing. You guys cut me a great deal on this, and I thank you for that. It wasn't really even necessary since these were such a competitive price to begin with, but they're so easy to install too. They come with a set of, each side comes with a set of 2 washers to provide the spacing that's necessary to make sure that it actually fits perfectly within the housing on the suspension. But good to have. So thanks for providing that. These are really good stuff. Let's do a quick install on one of these and see how easy it really is to install with a press. I got a 20-ton press behind me, but you can really just do this with a 12-ton if you really have it. So let's take a look. All right, so it seems like everything's lined up pretty nicely. The spacing on the arbor plates are such that the actual bushing can still go through, and because it has to go through, because the width of the actual bushing is wider than the casting itself. So if I were to start pushing down on this thing, you can see it goes in with the same amount of friction as a normal bushing. So the tolerances on the outer sleeve are actually really good. This is going to hold in place pretty well. And you just keep on pushing. You got to make sure that you had it in square. When you first start this, you have to have it in square, because if you find that it starts to go oblong one way or the other, you're going to end up marring the edge of the bushing sleeve and also the casting, and that's no good. So it takes, it's definitely worth the time to take your time with this and make sure that everything is square. Now, as I push, I'm going to end up going a little bit slower and slower to make sure that I'm not going too far. And if I do, I'm going to need to flip it over and try again. I think I'm in a good spot here. Let's take a quick look. Relieve the pressure. Just enough. Not quite enough. There we go. Let's take a look. That's actually pretty good. If you look at the other side, it's all evened out. You have just enough accessibility for the screw, the set screw here that holds this retainer plate in place. And overall, I'm actually pretty happy with it. Yeah, pretty happy. So having said that, guys, I got them both pressed in exactly where I want it. And in order to fit it into the suspension subframe, use a couple of the washers supplied in order to make the spacing, bolt it on, and it should be good to go. Thanks a lot, Paul. Thanks, Brent. Appreciate you guys helping out and sponsoring the build. Okay, let's talk diffs.
All right, so this is the stock differential. This is a 265 open differential. You can tell because you can see the spider gears in here. That means it's an open differential. The limited slip unit, which is this one, this is a 3.15 unit. It has you got like slip discs inside of here that connect to the output shafts, and that allows when you have one wheel that's spinning, one output shaft that's spinning, it sends 25% of the torque to the wheel that wasn't spinning. So no matter what, you're going to get at least 25% of the torque to either wheel, which is a pretty nice thing to do when you want to look and do things like donuts and performance racing. It's always good to have grip on the inside wheels. You don't really have that with an open. It's actually not meant for performance at all, which I thought was kind of odd for an 850i Canadian car with the sports seats and a whole bunch of other cool goodies. It doesn't have a limited slip, but regardless of that, this came from an E32 750 IL, okay, and it's got different mounting points, well actually different mounting bracket here than what you see in the 850. However, the mounting points is what I was going to say. From down here and up here are the same bolts here and here, so I just need to remove this bracket and replace it with that one. Same thing for the rear. The bolt pattern is exactly the same. The 850 E31s, 750 E32s are all the same diff. It just matters on the output shafts as well as your mounting locations. But it's the same overall casting. So the difference between the rear covers, let me show you that real quick. This here was the beautiful E32 rear cover that came with the diff, but it is not needed. I actually need this one with the dual ear configuration, which was obviously what came from the car. The bolt pattern, as I said earlier, lines up. The bushings are still good, so I'm going to keep the bushings, but I am going to clean and sandblast this so that I can get it painted. I want to paint this, and I also want to paint this bracket as well. To match and install on this. So let's go and clean this up. Let's blast it, remove this, blast it, and then we'll paint them, and then we'll get it installed on the diff, and we'll get the diff ready to go with fluid and everything installed, ready to go on the subframe.
Okay, it's cleaned up quite a bit. Now you might be asking me, why did I clean it up before putting it in a sandblast booth? And the reason is because I've learned the hard way about clogging up your air line for your sandblaster, and I really did not want to make that mistake again because honestly, it's a huge pain in the butt. You're constantly fixing things, and especially if you have grease or gunked up dirt grease balls that gets sucked up by the hose for sandblasting, it's going to get into your gun and permeate through because that grease just ends up adhering to everything, and it just continually clogs the gun, and that's really a pain in the butt. So I wanted to just prevent any of that from happening beforehand. So here is what it looks like now, which is not so bad. I'm actually think it's going to clean up really well. Obviously, I'm going to tape off the bushings when I go to paint it, but I got a lot of the gunk off, and I'm ready to put it in the booth. This is I already performed an upgrade to this booth after having gotten it, and I got the foot pedal. Foot pedal mod is so much easier than holding your hand with your gun with the trigger finger, and you're trying to spray at the same time, and your hands get really tired really fast when you're doing that. I'm telling you, with the gloves, the dexterity just is not there. So to have your foot to do all of the work, and then all you have to do is just move the gun in the location you want is really, really a big plus. So this is the gun that I got. It's an Eastwood gun, and it's completely different than the other gun, and it's so much better. I already tried once to blast a quick part, and it took half the time than the Harbor Freight gun that came with this blaster. So good move. It was about $80, $70 from Eastwood, and yeah, I mean, I know that's cheaper Chinese stuff too. I get it, but hey, it does the job and it gets it done. So let's blast this thing and get these parts ready for paint. So this is what they looked like before.
And after. Wow, they came out really good. You just look at this. Looks almost brand new. Bushings are good. I'm keeping the bushings. But now that we got this, let's lay a coat of primer and then paint. So continuing on with the theme of the, the black and silver that I've got here on this guy, I'm going to stick with it. I'm actually going to do silver. I was going to do red, but I think that that's probably a little bit too much. So I've got my self-etching primer for bare aluminum surfaces, which is perfect. And I got my silver engine enamel paint, which is great for high temperatures. And I'm going to end up painting this guy both sides. Obviously not the mating surface, but inside here will be painted. And of course, this bracket will also be painted. So I'm going to rig it up. I'm going to lay a couple of coats of primer and then paint, and then I am done. All right, taking a look here with some light being shined on the subject. I'm actually really happy the way this came out. Soup to nuts. I mean, the paint is still wet, so it looks shiny, but it's going to end up dulling out a little bit after it dries. The backside is all taped up, but I did get on the inner skinnings there and the ribs. So that's pretty much good to go. This, same thing, same story, right? I mean, this is done pretty much too. All painted, primed and painted. So I'm just going to let both of these parts sit overnight, and then I'll end up installing them. They're going to end up going right on here. Obviously, I have a new gasket, paper gasket here around the back cover. And the new bracket gets installed there. So let's wait overnight and see how this thing turns out.
So you might have seen through the time lapse I was using this Forma gasket sealer. This is not a gasket maker, it's a sealer. It's by Permatex. It's item number 80019. This thing actually is supposed to supplement your gasket. As you saw, I did use a paper gasket in between the cover and the differential casting itself. The reason I used this was because the cover and the gasket is old, right? And there's some pitting in the casting, and I wanted to make sure that I didn't have any leaks whatsoever. This is really a very sticky type of liquid that helps to supplement the gasket and form that really good seal between the gasket itself and the thing that it's supposed to be sealing. So I decided to use this Forma gasket to really help to supplement that. So if you ever were interested in doing that, it's really good for oil pan gasket or any other type of aluminum, or to cast aluminum type, cast steel or iron type of mating surfaces. So I highly recommend this, 80019.
So I was trying to do some research on the springs. I know I wanted to keep them because I like the stance of the E31, but I realized after a forum member had told me these are actually Dinan Stage 3 E31 springs. And I'm like, whoa, that's awesome. So I decided, I'm like, instead of buying a new set of springs, I know people had issues with the rear suspension, the cut springs, or use a different spring pad or whatever. I felt like I'm just going to keep the springs that I have. I like the stance. I think it's a great, perfect stance for what I got and the wheels that I have set up and tires. I'm like, I'm just going to clean them up. And that's exactly what I did. I painted them red, or painted them. I had them powder coated professionally, sandblasted and powder coated red. I thought that was really sporty. I felt like I wasn't really going to go too crazy with the colors on these, but I felt like I wanted to do something cool with springs because, hey, springs are always a cool color. And I thought red was awesome. So these still are the same Dinan Stage 3 springs. It's got a really nice aggressive stance if you want to check out the stance. And yeah, so these actually are pretty cool springs. It's really, really stiff, so I think it's going to offer a really sporty ride, and it's going to match the sway bars that I have as well, which are also Dinan Stage 3. So guys, that just about does it for today's episode. I'm going to be breaking these up. I'm not going to be doing part 1, 2, 3, 4, whatever, because I don't know really how many parts there are going to be. I somewhat underestimated the amount of work it would take to get the suspension reinstalled onto the car, but what I'm just going to do is just break it up into what I'm actually doing. This episode was a bit of a mishmash of stuff, but
The next episode should be really good. I'm expecting there to be a good amount of progress there. And then when I do the rebuild, I'll obviously title that one appropriately as well. But guys, thank you so much for watching. My name is Frank Macaluso from Garageaholic. Tell your friends, like, comment. This swap is really starting to make some headway. The entire undercoating of the car is going to be done in the next couple of episodes. And then I can start focusing on paint and, of course, finishing up the engine bay and getting everything within the engine bay sorted. So, guys, thanks a lot for watching, and my name is Frank again, and talk to you soon. Later.